Hey everyone, if you're watching this video then you're probably asking the same questions. We've been getting some questions regarding active shooter incidents in Maryland. We're going to take a look at the active shooter incidents in Maryland since 2000. So what is an active shooter? It is defined as one or more individuals actively engaging in the killing or attempting to kill people in a populated area. The active threat aspect of the definition implies the ongoing threat in nature of the incident. What is the difference between active shooter and mass killing events? The federal definition of a mass killing event is an event in which 3 or more killings occur in a single incident. I want to take a moment to discuss what it means to be a survivor. A lot of the statistics that are published, we use the terms such as victims and casualties. We need to recognize the people that have survived these incidents. We will recognize those people who have survived these incidents, they call them survivors, in the statistics coming up in this video. The Federal Bureau of Investigation publishes annual reports on active shooter incidents. All the statistics in this video have come from these published reports. You can also download these reports from the FBI's website. This report seen here is a 20-year active shooter summary. The United States had 333 active shooter incidents between 2000 and 2019. You can see a yearly breakdown of the active shooter incidents. Out of the 333 incidents, 135 of those incidents met the mass killing criteria. This resulted in 2,851 casualties. Of the 2,851 who were wounded, 1,789 were survivors of those incidents. The state of Maryland accounts for 8 of these active shooter incidents during that time frame. Washington, D.C. accounts for 3 of these incidents. Please take a moment to review these statistics on the chart. As you can see, there is a steady increase in the number of events, not a decline. In 2020, there were 40 active shooter incidents. 5 of those incidents met the criteria for mass killing. This represents an increase of 33% from the year before. 2019 had 30 active shooter incidents. There were 164 casualties in these 40 incidents. Of those 164 who were wounded, 126 were survivors of those incidents. In 2020, Maryland and Washington, D.C. did not account for any active shooter incidents during that year. In 2021, there were 61 active shooter incidents. 12 of those incidents met the criteria for mass killing. Again, this represents an increase of over 50% from the year before. There were 243 casualties in these incidents. Of the 243 that were wounded, 140 were survivors of those incidents. The state of Maryland accounts for 2 of these active shooter incidents in 2021. Washington, D.C. did not account for any in 2021. Now let's take a closer look at the Maryland active shooter incidents between 2000 and 2022. Out of the 12 that are listed in the picture, 11 are listed on the FBI's active shooter annual report. In 2021, there was an incident that was dispatched as an active shooter at Capitol Heights that did not make the FBI's report. The reason for this is because the assailant surrendered before law enforcement arrived and did not meet the criteria for active shooter because there was no ongoing threat. We are including this in this video as a reminder of the lessons learned from that event. Each star represents the approximate location of an active shooter incident. We have included the 4 events that occurred in Washington, D.C. on the next slide. We're going to take a look at a few of these incidents. Since our western border is Washington, D.C., if there is a large-scale event in the District of Columbia, Prince George's County may provide mutual aid assistance. Here are the approximate locations of the 4 events in Washington, D.C.
Well, a chilling account of the shooting at the Columbia Mall is emerging from perhaps the only living eyewitness.
A young man who was inside the store the day tells us what he saw, things he will no doubt never forget. 11 News reporter David Collins joins us live from the newsroom. He has that part of the story for us. David?
Rod, his name is Chris. He doesn't want to be identified. He says Aguilar took purposeful steps toward Brianna Benelo, then raised his weapon and fired.
Surveillance cameras caught 19-year-old Darian Aguilar arriving by taxi at the Columbia Mall around 10:15 a.m., just after its doors opened. According to police, toting a backpack, he lingered for about an hour, sitting, standing, sometimes pacing. Police believe inside the backpack, a legally purchased Mossberg single-barrel pump-action shotgun with a pistol grip, similar to this one. After the shooting, they did find ammo and firework material that could be made into crude explosives. According to authorities, Aguilar took an escalator to the second floor. Zoomies was right in front of him. Around 11:15 a.m., wearing a white T-shirt and khakis, Aguilar emerged from a dressing room.
At first I thought it was fake, seeing him walk out of that dressing room and raise the gun up.
Chris, who does not want to be further identified nor seen, was browsing inside the skate surf shop. He may be the only living eyewitness to the shooting.
He was just silent, focused, no sort of expression or emotion.
Chris says store assistant manager Brianna Benelo was standing about 10 feet from the dressing room where Aguilar emerged. Chris says it appeared she may have been a target.
So he took a couple strides to get closer, and then took aim and shoot her in her upper body or her head, and she fell to the ground immediately.
Chris got on the floor on the opposite side of the store counter where Aguilar was. Store employee Tyler Johnson would be murdered seconds later.
And no more than 10 seconds later, I heard shot 2, which must have hit Tyler. And at that point, I basically just scrambled out the store on my hands and my chest, going right past Tyler as he was on the floor.
Chris said he then took off running, warning others by yelling, "Shooter." He feels blessed he got out of there alive, but his thoughts are with the victims' families.
Pray for the victim's family. I'm really sorry that this had to happen. It's senseless.
Chris says he explained all this to detectives who told him it was very helpful in their ongoing investigation. Reporting live from the newsroom, David Collins, WBAL TV 11 News.
An amazing story, David. Thank you.
January 25th, 2014 at 11:15 a.m. A man armed with a shotgun and explosive devices began shooting in the Mall of Columbia in Columbia, Maryland. First in a retail store, then in the open mall. 2 store employees were killed, 5 mall patrons were wounded. 1 person was shot in the ankle, and 4 others suffered medical emergencies. The shooter committed suicide before law enforcement arrived.
This is an NBC News special report. Here's Lester Holt.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're coming on the air with breaking news. A shooting this afternoon in Annapolis, Maryland, with multiple people reported shot in the building that houses the Annapolis Capital-Gazette, a newspaper owned by the Baltimore Sun. There are no word of the conditions of those shots or numbers. ATF and other law enforcement officers are on the scene. The building is being searched by police. There is no confirmation of the number of shooter or shooters or whether anyone is in custody. NBC's Tom Costello is in our Washington newsroom with the latest details in the still unfolding story. What are you hearing, Tom?
This began with a tweet, active shooter at 888 Bestgate Road, which is the address for the Capital Gazette. And moments ago, the Capital Gazette on their website put out a report. By the way, they are owned by the Baltimore Sun, and this would appear to have been written by somebody in the Baltimore Sun's newsroom. They say, quote, a shooting has occurred at the Capital Gazette in Anne Arundel County, a paper owned by the Baltimore Sun, according to reports from the Gazette staff. Anne Arundel County PD confirming there was an active shooter at that location. Also going on to say ATF, Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, confirming it is responding to a shooting incident. This is important. Phil Davis, a Gazette reporter from the Capital Gazette, said that multiple people had been shot. police did not immediately respond to requests for further information. So this is coming, we believe, from a Baltimore-based reporter talking to people in the Capital Gazette newsroom where they are saying multiple people have been shot, but we do not have their conditions. We have seen people coming out of that building for the last half an hour or so with their arms raised as police want to make sure that the scene is clear of any active shooters, but we do not have confirmation of anybody in custody at this point or of any fatalities, despite a lot of conflicting information out there at this point. Lester, I would just note that as we have watched these images, we've seen the EMS, the fire personnel, and the police at this point, or for the last 20, 30 minutes, really in more of a stand-down position. In other words, we've not seen any urgency running in and out of the building for the better part of 20 or 30 minutes now.
Yeah, and those pictures of people coming out hardly need explanation after what we have certainly all witnessed over the last couple of years. Governor Larry Hogan tweeted just a few moments ago. I'll read it directly from my phone. He says, "Absolutely devastated to learn of this tragedy in Annapolis. I am in contact with County Executive Steve Shaw, and they're on the scene assisting. Please heed all warnings and stay away from the area, praying for those at the scene and for our community." That's from the governor of Maryland as we watch this situation unfold. A lot of tactical vehicles. There are a lot of activity, but as Tom noted, not any sense of urgency from what we can see from these pictures. But of course, we're only seeing part of this unfold. Obviously, something happened in these offices. That Gazette reporter, Phil Davis, said multiple people had been shot, but we're still not getting any further confirmation from police. But you see the EMS vehicles are now staging at a parking lot in a shopping mall across the street there. We don't have any specific numbers or the conditions of those who have been shot. Tom Moore?
I've just seen a fast note here from the Anne Arundel County EMS, Emergency Medical Services, confirming now to NBC News that, in fact, there are confirmed injuries as a result of a shooting. But at this point, we don't have any details on any potential deaths. So confirmed injuries, which would, in fact, go hand in hand with that reporting from the Gazette reporter on the scene.
All right, Tom Costello, thank you very much. We are obviously going to closely follow this story as events warrant. We will come back on the air. And, of course, full details on this when we see you for NBC Nightly News. For now, I'm Lester Holt, NBC News, New York. Good day.
June 29th, 2018, at 2:34 in the afternoon. A man armed with a shotgun began shooting in the Capital Gazette news offices in Annapolis, Maryland. Although the shooter had smoke grenades in his backpack, he did not deploy them. In this incident, 5 people were killed and 2 people were wounded. The shooter was apprehended by law enforcement at the scene.
We do begin with breaking news this afternoon. 2 people are dead at a senior living facility in Prince George's County. Police say the shooting happened earlier this morning at the Gateway Village Assisted Living Facility in Capitol Heights. It's still a very active scene in that area. Police have a suspect in custody and do confirm that so far 2 people are dead. Our affiliate in D.C. spoke with one of the residents not long ago who says the shooter was his friend and he saw him in the hallway after the fire alarm went off.
I saw him, the shooter, lying on the hallway with his arms stretched out, and the weapon was like 6 feet apart. He told me to let the police know that he was no threat, he's ready, he's waiting for them. What he had done, he knew he was going away. He told me that.
He claims the shooter's motive was the poor treatment of residents at that facility. However, police are still investigating those claims. Again, officials do have the suspect in custody.
Although this incident did not make the FBI's report, this incident was dispatched as an active shooter incident. October 8th, 2021, at approximately 9:15 in the morning, a man armed with a handgun shot and killed 2 women at the National Church Residences Gateway Village, a senior living facility located in Capitol Heights, Maryland. The shooter was apprehended at the scene by law enforcement officers.
We are taking you out to some aerial footage we got from the scene around 2:30 yesterday afternoon when the Washington County Sheriff's Office said deputies responded to a shooting at Columbia Machine, which is a manufacturing facility in Smithsburg, Maryland. We later learned that 3 people were killed after this shooting broke out, and there was also a shooting, incident involving the suspect, a shootout with police. So I do want to head out live to the scene right now. That's where Fox 5 DC's Melanie Alnwick is joining us with the very latest this morning. Melanie, a really tragic situation, another shooting in America that we are following for our viewers here. What can you tell us this morning? Any new developments?
What we can tell you, the newest development is that a state trooper who was injured in the shootout with the suspect has been released from the hospital, and we're told he's expected to do okay. He's a 25-year veteran of the Maryland State Troopers, and we know that they got that APB for the suspect and happened to come across him and engaged him in gunfire shortly after the shooting. But people here in the small town of Smithsburg certainly shocked by this, broken up by it, and this is the second shooting in the area in this county in just 2 days. There was also a shooting at the local mall or nearby the mall. Not a mass shooting, but still something that people were very concerned about. It's been very quiet here this morning. We have not seen anybody coming in and out of Columbia Machine Parts, the manufacturing facility. They do mold manufacturing where the shooting happened yesterday. What we do know is the 23-year-old suspect is a co-worker here, an employee here, came here at 2:30 in the afternoon yesterday and shot 4 people. Then he left the scene. When the sheriff's deputies arrived here after that call for the shooting, they found 3 men dead and then 1 man with critical injuries, critical gunshot wounds outside the front door. And that's when, again, that call went out for that red Mitsubishi that fled the scene. And then the state troopers found that vehicle and engaged the shooter. There was some cell phone video that really just caught wildfire yesterday on social media. A woman that Fox 5 spoke with who just said she first saw all of these sirens and heard the police activity. Then she heard the troopers yelling for the suspect to put his hands up. And that's when just this barrage of gunfire was heard. And again, the state trooper was struck by gunfire as well as the suspect. They were in fact both taken to the very same hospital, and at one point we were told that the hospital itself was on lockdown, but they wouldn't say exactly why. That lockdown ended shortly thereafter. And again, as far as we know at this point, the suspect is still in the hospital under police guard, and they have not released his name yet. They say they will do so once they file formal charges, and my guess is the holdup is you now have 4 victims and probably some other things that they have to look at and see exactly what charges they're going to file. But we are hopeful, Regina, that at some point later today we will get a little bit more information. And of course, as the day goes on, we'll probably learn a little bit more about the victims as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, Melanie, did we get any official confirmation on whether we would get another update at some point today from authorities? I know yesterday they had a pretty short press briefing and not many details revealed.
We're still working that. We're making phone calls today to find out perhaps when they might have some more information to update for us. I know a lot of people want to know the man who survived the shooting, the other victim here, the employee at the Machine Works plant, again, said to be in critical condition. So I think people are looking for an update on that as well. And lots of media here, of course, as you can imagine. So we're all standing by waiting for whatever information they'll be able to give us.
Well, Melanie, we do appreciate you, as always, joining us here and bringing our viewers up to speed on everything that happened yesterday afternoon. So we'll definitely be in touch with your team. You stay safe out there and have a great weekend.
Thanks, Regina. You too.
All right, everybody. And if we do get any updates from authorities coming into our desk at some point later today, we'll be sure to stream it for you live, raw, and unfiltered.
June 9th, 2022, at approximately 2:30 in the afternoon, an employee began shooting co-workers at the Columbia Machine Factory in Smithsburg, Maryland. He had been at work that day working his normal shift when he went outside to retrieve a weapon. He came back into the facility and went into the break room where he opened fire on other employees. 3 people were shot inside the break room. He shot a fourth person outside the facility. When law enforcement arrived, they found one victim critically injured outside and 3 additional victims inside, all of whom were deceased. The shooter had already fled the scene when law enforcement arrived. Maryland State Police found the shooter 5 miles away. While attempting to apprehend the shooter, shots were exchanged by the trooper and the assailant, and both were injured in the exchange. 3 people were killed and 2 people were wounded, including the Maryland State Police trooper. So if we break down the type of location, here's what we have. 2 incidents occurred in open spaces, meaning street, parks, etc. 1 incident occurred at an educational institution. It was at a high school. 1 incident occurred at a shopping center. 1 incident occurred at a government building. It was a police station. 5 incidents occurred at commercial businesses. And 2 incidents occurred at residences, homes, or apartments. For more information on the active shooter resources published by the FBI, please visit their website at www.fbi.gov. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel and get notifications as we publish more materials.